Hi, I'm Dr. Amy French of the Delta College History Department. Today I want to take a few minutes just to overview the historical events paper for the Michigan History Civic Engagement component, the project part of the Michigan History class. And so let me share my screen here, and I'm going to show you a little overview here that I have that should help you regardless if you're in my class or if you have a different professor. We have standardized guidelines for this paper, so this should help you as you're trying to gather your thoughts. Now, I highly recommend that you talk with your professor or with me if you're one of my students. But the outcome for the civic engagement project is universal. So it's designed to give you an understanding of the communities that are diverse in nature. And so what that means is what we're trying to do is to think about, who are these people in the past? What kind of identities they have? What kind of experiences? How are they different from one another? What kind of different backgrounds do they have? Different worldviews did they have? And then look at these points of conflict that they had. So that's why this is a paper about events, and these events have been picked by the professors of the Delta College History Department. You'll be given a list of specific events to choose from. So you don't have to go out and find your own events. In fact, we don't want you to. We've given you a very specific list that will be on your e-learning site to pick from that will show you issues of conflict that we think are important ones, and more importantly, are ones that we think are researchable, because that's one problem with history isn't always researchable. It can be interesting, it can be fascinating, and then we can also find that we can't find anything about it. And so we try to pick some areas of conflict that we actually think that you will find information about. So to do this, you're going to explore 4 events, 4 moments in time from this cultivated list of subjects. Upon completion of this project, the objective that we hope is that you will identify the diverse groups involved in the event, the choices that they made, the consequences of those choices, of those actions, and then analyze the effect of that change. You'll also want to show how people use their voices and actions to engage in society. So civic engagement, how they may have created change. If they didn't create change, you'll look, and of course the directions are very, very thorough, and they're going to lead you through this. And so you're going to want to read these directions very thoroughly before you even begin starting the research. You should go through, read them from start to finish, and then I always think it's good to do it at least twice. I think before you even start, I think it's good to do one read through, and that's just your initial read through. Just hey, what's going on with this thing? And then go through a second time for detail. Now, once you've read it first, just to kind of get an idea of what the project is about, then go through and read it through with an attention to detail. And that's when, at that point, you can reach out to your professor and say, now I have some questions maybe about it, and start to take some notes and see. But you'll notice that in the directions that you're going to be looking to see, where did people engage, where did people act in civic engagement? If they didn't act in civic engagement, which you might find, some of the events you might find that they didn't act in civic engagement, how could they? You can analyze that too. The project layout, you're going to write this, it will be for each of them, you're going to do one big introduction, that'll be 250 words, and then for each report, for each event, you're going to have a minimum of 1,000 words. And so this is all there for you. You'll see this in your guide, and then you'll have a conclusion overall. You historians, as a profession, we use Chicago Manual of Style. So your bibliography, your citations should be in Chicago Manual of Style. Some of the examples of historical events, now you'll be picking them from the list on the website, but just to give you an idea to kind of talk through. They'll always be listed like this. So it'll be listed the event. So for instance, Detroit's first race riot. This occurs after Detroit's Black citizens have helped the Blackburns, who's a fugitive slave couple, escape to Canada. And this event then starts the anti-slavery movement in Detroit. This was from June 14th and 15th, 1833. And then we've also given you some in quotation marks there. These are key words that you can use when trying to do research. And so it's always good when you're doing the research to have an idea of, well, what kind of keywords do I use in searches when I'm doing these searches in JSTOR, Michigan Historical Review, and Michigan History Magazine. So for each event, you'll see the same thing. You'll see the event, next one, like stop on Underground Railroad at Second Baptist Church, and then in parentheses, kind of what is the main subject here? What's the subject? Discuss abolitionism in the Underground Railroad. When did it occur? What was the date? It was started in 1836 by 13 former slaves. And then you'll see in quotation marks again, some key words: Underground Railroad, Michigan, anti-slavery, Michigan, abolitionism, Michigan. And so here you'll see these are separated by a comma. And that's because if you were putting these and plugging these into a search engine, into a database like JSTOR, you would put Underground Railroad, Michigan into the search engine. You would put that in there if it was one line, or if it was one of those where you had a couple lines and you could put Underground Railroad and Michigan, if it gives you that and or thing. Ford hunger strike at the Ford River Rouge plant. The subject is the labor movement. And it occurred on March 7th, 1932. And so what are some keyword searches? Labor movement in Michigan, or Ford hunger strike. Rosie the Riveters and women's contribution to World War II. This happened at the Willow Run plant. And so the subject is women in war work during World War II. This was during the 1940s primarily, the early 1940s, because the war ended in 1945. And so you would put women in war work, Michigan, women war workers, Michigan. The Packard hate strike, 25,000 Packard workers strike to protest the promotion of 3 Black workers. This was in June 1943. You could put in racism in the labor movement, Michigan, or the Packard hate strike. The Walk for Freedom led by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. This was through Midtown Detroit. So you could put civil rights. The subject is civil rights. This was in June of 23rd, 1963. Some searches, some keyword searches would be Dr. King in Michigan, or civil rights protest, Michigan, or Walk for Freedom, Michigan. And And lastly, uprisings or riots of 1967. Sometimes it's called the Rebellion in 1967. Sometimes it's called the Uprising of 67. Sometimes it's called the Riot of 67. It goes by a few different names. It happened around 12th and Claremont in Detroit, the corners of 12th and Claremont in Detroit. And so the subject usually is not called, usually it's referred to the Detroit race riot. Though there was also, and is another event, there's also a 1943 race riot. So, you want to make sure that when looking that you're deciphering if you chose one or the other or both of them, that the event is specific to which year. This one was July 23rd, 1967 is when it starts. Racial tensions, Detroit, 1967, or 1967 Detroit riot, or 1967 Detroit rebellion. And then also, as you're researching, make sure you really look through all the materials that are presented for you on research. There's lots of materials for you on how to do the research. Use the academic secondary sources, the databases that have been given that, Delta puts resources like for JSTOR, for Michigan Historical Review, Michigan History Magazine. The Delta librarians are ready to help. We have wonderful Delta librarians. They have set up tutorials to help you. There's also this wonderful project overview. And so let's see if it'll load up for us here. And it is. And so this was created in consultation with me so that we have a wonderful civic engagement project overview where it already has links right to JSTOR, Michigan Historical Review, Michigan History Magazine, and the course textbooks are there. Pretty much everything you're going to need is going to be available for you. So really has a lot of what you're looking for. And the your professors should have access to this if you need a link to that, and have it available to you. So you're really going to have a lot of things ready to go. It's going to be there's a lot of information certainly to digest, but I encourage you to look through everything, ask questions when you have them, and realize that although it is incredibly um, it might seem, incredibly overwhelming at first, it is going to be a very exciting time. My students have been doing this for years, and the one thing that I get over and over and over again in the conclusion was how much they learned and how excited they were to have learned so much about Michigan history. So it is really a manageable. Just allocate your time as you go along. Take it through piece by piece by piece. Make sure that you're really thinking about as you go throughout the semester that however long your semester is, just divide up the work that needs to be done by the amount of weeks that you have in the semester. And good luck and have a great time researching for this wonderful historical events project.